Board games, it's what I'm talking about. Board games, it's what I'm not gonna shout. I am starting off this streaming with a little bit of singing. And over here with me, Yana, is the person known as Dina. Yana isn't even a real word. Sometimes these songs can get quite absurd because that's the way that we be. Sometimes going on it tangentially, but we're talking about marketing in games, like branding and coming up with your names. Today we're talking about our future plans and how much of the future is in your hands. With board games and marketing, it's what we're talking about. Board games and marketing. I'm not gonna shout. Hello and good morning, good afternoon, good whatever it is, wherever you are. This is episode 358 of Busy Beats and Board Game Blether. And hello, Timmy. It's lovely to see you. And I 100% marketing is hard, which is why it's worth getting a partner or hiring people or some. But if you are just one person, for sure, I understand you might not have a budget. You have to do a lot of it yourself. And this is the thing. Everyone's got to take on as much or as little as they can. And today we are going to be talking, as I said, specifically about marketing in board games with Dina, forming long-term plans. And Dina, it is lovely to have you. How are you today? How would you introduce yourself? What is something that you're proud of? If you don't mind me launching into all the difficult questions.
So many things. How am I today? Struggling a little bit with allergies because pollen season. Yay! My sinuses is like my face is kind of bursting. Yeah. Other than that, I've had sugar this morning, so I'm feeling, the surge levels are going up, and it makes me feel a little bit better. And how would I introduce myself? I do marketing, particularly organic social media marketing, as a specialist there, where I help indie game designers do more of what they should be doing and focusing on the road ahead on their journey to lower the threshold to talk about their adventures with making games and launching on Kickstarter or as a publisher.
And that's a lovely introduction. Thank you very much. Hello, Rob. It is lovely to see you. Hello, Jay Foolsguard. Hello, Nicholas.
Hello.
And
so many
board
people.
kitting.
Board kitting. That's a good one.
So let's start off, as we always do, with a few recent highlights, living life and seeing the sights, recent highlights, playing games and other delights, recent highlights. So what have been some of your recent highlights? I saw Chris yesterday. We stayed outside, we were in the garden. Chris was actually playing quintuple, solo testing it a few times, helping me with the rules out in the garden, despite the fact that it was raining. I had this discussion to make. Do I let someone play with my cards literally whilst it's raining? And yeah, you know what? It is the oldest sets that I have, and they seem to have survived. They're fine now. You probably couldn't really tell that they were outside literally in the rain. I just left them on the bed afterwards to kind of get a wee bit drier, yeah, and left the box open. I'm quite happy with that. So yes, rain, I'm not going to call them rain resistant because then that's opening me up to all sorts of legal problems. But that was definitely a highlight. Watching Chris, play through that. We had a really good conversation, and I made a after yesterday's announcement when Rita and Tiz were here, I've made a decision that I am going to try and keep future morning conversations a wee bit shorter. I'm going to try and aim for 1 hour. Whether it ends up on a Friday, it might be half an hour or 40 minutes, like I said way back in the past, but it never happened because I was too addicted. And so what I've decided is I'm going to try and make them an hour, maybe 2 hours if it absolutely has to be, but no more epic 3 or 4 hour streams just because I'm kind of addicted to it. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stream more often, which sounds kind of quite a lot because I'm already doing 8 streams a week, but I'm going to go up to 12 streams a week. So as of the 11th, I'm going to start every Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. I'm going to have another quick 1 hour stream at a more US friendly time, which is going to be 4 p.m. until 5 p.m. And that might just be me doing, it'll be half an hour of gaming, half an hour of chatting. There might be a lot of intermingling. You know, it might be playing. It's not going to be, here's the end of the chat. Here's the start of the play. It's not going to be as formal as that. But it might have some lovely guests from America. I've already had some, you know, really, really lovely people that I'm excited to have on. But we're negotiating like exact dates and some people that I've just never been able to have on the show because, hey, America, you know, this show's pretty early for those American people. And so this is going to be a mixture of chit-chatting and all sorts of things. Anyway,
That is so cool.
Is a big recent highlight. Before we get to you, Dina, I do apologize. Let's catch up with the chat. Kickstarter seems crazy, seems Timmy. Timmy says, an orange pop today is a highlight. And yes, pop is the North American, Canadian, Nova Scotian, whatever word for soda.
That explains it. I was like, what is that?
Hello, Runa. It is lovely to see you. And hello, Nikita from Attican Games. It is lovely to see you too. And Nikita Attican Games is joining us on Saturday, but it's lovely to have you.
Oh, so great.
And if you have any of your own recent highlights, feel free to chuck them in. Dina, what are some of your recent highlights? Have you managed to play any games recently?
Yes. So it kind of started last week. And this is not just like a recent highlight. This is a massive highlight in my life right now, socially, because I moved to this to South Finland from Northern Finland 8 months ago now. And I know no one here. No one. And in that time, I've managed to like maybe talk a little bit to one of my neighbors in the same building, and one other person who recognizes because his kid is hanging out with my kid at kindergarten. So he gave us a lift once, and that was it. 2 people. And one day we were late to kindergarten, and I was dropping off my child, and it turned out that it was the mom who was also there, was the mama of my kid's best friend at kindergarten. My kid adores this child. He talks about them all the time. And we were like, oh, are you the mom of so-and-so? And we're like, yeah, okay. So we kind of slowly chatted as we walked to the parking lot, and it turns out she likes board games.
The kid or the mom?
The mom.
Okay.
My kid loves board games. Her kid does not. But she has like 5 other kids, and they like board games. So she's like a board gaming family.
Except for this one kid who's your kid's favorite.
Yes. Except
but
for
maybe your kid just hasn't met the siblings. Maybe all the other siblings will be even better playmates. That's amazing.
Yeah, I know. So we started chatting, and she was like, oh, maybe we should hang out. And I'm like, yeah, I would love that. And usually when people say, let's hang out, it never happens. So I was like, yeah, that's cool. Here's my number in case you actually want to hang out. But lo and behold, the day after, we're already like scheduling, like, hey, come over our place. And I cooked for them. So I did a big thing, I made a starter and a meal, and I made fancy dessert with like mango. Mango sorbet in a mochi ball that I made, and I steamed it forever, and I was like, I made a huge deal out of this, and they came with roses, and my kid was told it was absolutely amazing, and I was like, oh, this is so cool, I hope this happens again. And then she just out of the blue sent me a message going like, hey, do you want to come over right now? We're playing board games. And this is like Monday. I was working and I was like, okay, I got to finish this one email and I can come over. And she drove over because she didn't want to wait. So she drove over here, picked me up, which is like a half an hour away. And we had food and we played board games, and then she drove me to pick up my kid. And the day after, she was like,
Nice.
oh, do you want to
What
hang
did
out
you
together?
play?
So we played Latte Throwdown, which I quite recently got from Kickstarter. So I've been quite enjoying that. And we also played another round. Like, we had a look at the cards. We didn't actually get to play the Wild Dragons. And we also talked about all the other games that they have and I have. And we all realized we all have Battlestar Galactica. And so there we are,
Wow.
3 moms with kids in kindergarten age, and we're looking at our schedule going like, how fast can we actually get to play Battlestar Galactica? And does anyone have like expansions, and can we make it happen? And while we're sitting there, we're like starting to call in for babysitters, and things are just moving around really quickly. And all of a sudden, 2 weeks in the future, we have a full day set off to Battlestar Galactica. The house is empty, the kids are all taken care of, and this is like coordinating. I think there's 11 kids being taken care of by other people, so that 3 moms can play Battlestar Galactica.
That does sound fantastic.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I agree with all the comments. This does sound amazing.
It's
A
just
proper hello
wow.
to Netherlander Yoda.
Hello, Yana. It's absolutely
Because
wow. You
as
hear
Rob
about it.
so helpfully reminded us with the Yoda comment, don't say Dutch Yoda, say Netherlander Yoda.
Netherlander Yoda. We'll remember that.
But that sounds amazing. And I guess this is the way it's going to happen with lockdown. We are going to, some friends will have moved on. Some of us will have moved to a new place, but we are all going to make new friends. This is fantastic. Let's move on. If anyone has any questionably quick questions, then get them in within the next minute or two. So, questionably quick question. The first, as I always ask, what time is it? Where are you?
12:12 South Finland in Hämeenlinna.
So, Finland, 2 hours ahead of UK time, where it is 10:12 in London, where I am based. What's a surprise? My next question is, what did you want to be when you grew up?
An amoeba.
Really?
Yeah.
You had fantasies of being a single-celled creature, kind of, with no sentient thought? Interesting.
Because I had this idea that, because obviously amoebas can merge with other individuals, like other amoebas, and they create a bigger thing. And I was thinking of like a symbiotic relationship, and I thought, like, what is a greater expression of love than merging in with other people and just become one, but still having individual thoughts? And it does, like, the idea to me just sounded so nice. And like I've been a severely traumatic child, like my childhood wasn't the greatest. So obviously this was my aspirations to become an amoeba in, the theory of it, to merge with other people and elevate our lives by creating a symposium. So I went into board games.
That kind of feels like a really nice analogy for how people are coming together and becoming parts of a greater community. That's almost really poetic.
Right? I'm glad you're seeing it like that. I had a friend of mine who was like, that sounds really bad, and I don't think that's a healthy thought. And I'm like, well, I was like 3 when I came up with this, and I just, it stuck with me for so long. It's I've always wanted a community, a place to call home. So that's what I'm doing here.
And we've Good morning to Jess. It is lovely to have you in the comments. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm struggling to understand Rob's story. I once went to Helsinki, changing planes in Stockholm. Coming back, we landed in Stockholm before we left Helsinki, which was weird. Rob, I feel like I'm missing. I'm struggling to comprehend this. Maybe you could come on tomorrow and tell us all about it a bit more slowly. Explain it to me like I'm 5 years old or something. And Duo does in Lely sat. Runa's got a pheasant outside staring at a magpie. And
nice pheasant.
time zones, Rob Harper means. Okay, so as in okay. So as in we went back in time and okay.
Because you would be landing, because the flight between Stockholm and Helsinki is like 45 minutes. So you're landing 15 minutes prior.
Yeah, you land 15 minutes before you left.
Yeah.
Because they're just like on the board. Okay, that makes sense. Okay. Yes, I get it.
1 hour apart. Yeah.
Okay, and let's talk about brilliant things. What's a little thing which is brilliant? Some people are obviously brilliant. For example, you are a brilliant person. But let's talk about long-term plans. Why are long-term plans a brilliant thing? Why should we care about long-term plans? Why not just focus on today? Why not just wallow in yesterday?
Wallowing yesterday. I'm not sure that's a healthy attitude to life in order to have any sort of growth. But sure, I mean, sometimes we all need to do that, like retrospective and dissecting what has been before we can go forward into what is going to be. And I'm a huge fan of auditing your past efforts. So obviously, do look backwards, but take it as a learning opportunity rather than a red pen. I don't have one. I have a pink one. Does that?
Sorry, it's just because I had to write notes and
I was showing pens. Now I have a green one too.
No, don't let me ignore you. Don't let me distract you. Don't get distracted.
Yeah. So don't get distracted, Dina. So she gets distracted. Okay. So by making plans for what is going to be, you are basically giving yourself milestones that you can hit in order to predict future behavior and things that you need to align with other people in order to make happen. Right? So if you're wanting to do a Kickstarter there where it's like, these are the steps that needs to be happening in order to make that happen. And by making long-term plans, you can aim for that as a part of your planning. That's kind of the idea.
It's about if you know where you want to be and then you plan out a way to get to where you want to be, then you might actually get there. I mean, it's not like making a plan means that it'll definitely happen, right? But
no.
It means that it's more likely to happen.
Maybe more likely, yeah. And you can always and surprises will come along during the journey towards said goals. And then it's nice to have milestones. So you're like, okay, so next month we need to do this in order for the 1-year plan to work or the 3-year plan to work. And then you're putting yourself milestones because then you can assess where you are towards your main, like the biggest goal. Some people would talk about OKRs and key result planning in order to like set those measures on the way to the larger goal. So if you have a 5-year plan, a 3-year plan, and you break it down to smaller bits so that you know actually what is going to happen. Because everyone can make those really big plans. Oh, in 3 years, I'm going to be the greatest game designer in all of the Nordics. Sure, I can say that, but how am I going to do that? So you would look at the big goal and see, okay, in order for that to happen, I would need to do X and Y and Z, and these are the things that I probably would have to attend to in order to get the name out, and so on. A self-fulfilling prophecy. And then assess on the way. Do changes, iterate, like you do with your game design. You need to do iterations. Check where you are along the planning, make changes when needed.
I would
Never
like
set
to
yourself.
ask people in the chat, do you do lots of long-term planning? Do you plan things out specifically? Do you think that you do enough long-term planning? Or do you think that you are too short-term and constantly, because you can really get caught up in the grind of, oh, this is what I've got today. This is what I've got to do this week. This is what I've got to do by the end of the next few hours. And then you never get to take a step back and actually think, what are the things that will actually improve where I am in a year's time? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And
And
obviously with neurodiversity as well, that is one of the main challenges when it comes like for people who have like autism coaches and ADHD coaches. One of the biggest things that they work on is the ability to make plans and actually look back and be like, okay, this is where you are today. Where do you want to be in the future? And then being able to break it down because with people who are neurodiverse, being able to see the long-term plans and being motivated by them can be really difficult because it's just not connected in our brains. We need to see things as in what can I do right now and what needs to happen within this week in order to have that big goal in sight. And if it's not broken down properly to like the tiny bits on the way, it's never going to happen.
I can definitely see that. And you need to make the things. I remember a sibling saying smart. It's got to be specific. It's got to be broken down enough so that it's not, okay, I'm going to be an amazing game designer. It's got to be like, what specifically can I do? But Runa has kind of rails against this, saying life is what happens while you're busy making other plans. And I think, you do have to take time for sure to enjoy the moments, to say, okay, not just what am I doing for the year, for the decade ahead, but also what am I doing today? What am I going to get to do today that I might enjoy? And I've decided, sneak preview, I know this isn't the what are you up to section yet, but I'm going to do a lot of reading, maybe read some magazines, maybe read some books. I'm going to try and stay away from the computer after maybe 1 p.m, just kind of finish it up for the rest of the day. And go out into the park and maybe into our garden, I don't know, sit somewhere. And maybe you get to enjoy the pheasants and a magpie that might have been having a staring contest or might not have been. And what are other people saying? Hoon says, I tried making plans, but now I live life day by day. Runa says, I don't usually plan further ahead than a month. I got disappointed often when planning further ahead. Rob, I'm terrible at planning. I mostly plan food, but struggle with other things. Jess from Descent Games, I am good at long-term plans, daily details, less so. But I panic early, which makes up for all of that. That's a really interesting point. I know that you were chatting vaguely. And what timescale are you working with when you plan long-term? 1 year, 3 years, 5 years? I mean, personally, I have these. I think that the closer you are to today, the more concrete and tight you can be. Like looking 10 years ahead, I've kind of got, okay, I've got to do categorical, I've got to deliver that to the Kickstarter backers who've already paid for it. Then I'm going to do a couple, which might be, I don't know if we get our things lined up correctly on Kickstarter by the end of the year. And then I'm planning, okay, after that, it's probably going to be alphabetical, which will be the original typeface. That, they are correctly aligned, so you can see that original typeface with the original borders and whatnot. I say original, the second edition. And then after that will be Chris's thing. So I'm actually planning 4 releases ahead almost. And I'm also planning that in 20 years' time, I do have a vague idea of a future that I want people to be able to go into a shop. I want to be selling, in the high tens of thousands of units yearly, or ideally hundreds of thousands, but something that's all around the world, that's building up money enough to pay for a lot of people to do marketing, to help me run competitions, to do all sorts of things for the game, to generate organized play stuff. I and being able to go into the shop and having multiple decks on sale at once. I have very long-term plans, but the further ahead, the more likely they are to fail. Descent games think I'm terrible with planning what I eat on any one day. Children, pandemic equals pounds of extra weight, but on a weekly basis, sure. Yoda is very good at planning, only very bad at keeping to that plan. What I noticed is that for me, actually writing it down and having it in a format where I'm able to refer to it, not just at the start of each day, and panic early is one of the most useful things ever. Yep, I'm constantly slightly worried about something, but very rarely taken by surprise. I understand. And morning, Alex. It is lovely to see you. And River Dusty, it is lovely to see you too. Lots of love to both of you, and thank you for joining us this morning. And J Guard has a question for us. What is a suitable plan for within 1 year and 6 months? I mean, for me personally, within 1 year and 6 months, I would like to have really finished the art for Categorical. I would have liked to get that to the printer. I would have, within a year, I would like that to be out. I would like to have done at least one other release on the Bezzy budget bags, maybe with my wee whimsical creatures. But Dina, what do you have plans? Do you want to talk about your plans?
Yeah, okay. Or how I plan, like my plans, or like how I plan. Because obviously, I get in clients who are going for Kickstarter, most of them at least. So we always have a date in mind. And I always look at like how much time do we have, what needs to be done before that, and then ensuring that we've delegated all the tasks that needs to be done, and then onboarding as early as possible the extra people we're going to need in order to make it happen. And sometimes we don't have the budget to onboard more people, and that just means that there's going to be more things that everyone has to do, and then we have to cut out something. Say we're not going to have more than X amount of influencers. We're not maybe doing extra press releases or outreach on Instagram that I really like doing for some of the clients that I work with. And then we have to look at what do we have to cut and how long time is going to be. Is it possible to get like a freelancer for 3 hours to do small things, and so on. So we always have, like for Kickstarters at least, you have a pretty good roadmap of like what has to happen, and then anything that is like bonuses that can happen or that you might prefer to happen, and then you can work it down. You break it down into like, okay, so by this time you have to do this 20 days prior to your release. You have to have done this, so you have a roadmap. And I like those. But for larger plans for the clients where I'm working with, who just have like publishers where they have several repeated releases, or they might not go Kickstarter route at all, then it's more about looking at the whole, like where are we today, and then making goals for the approaches and outreaches that you're working on. So maybe you want a deeper relationship with influencer. Maybe you want there to be more user-generated content, and then you're making, and those plans can be more wishy-washy because it depends on feedback. But you can always be like, okay, so I want to have at least the X amount of contacts, and then you can break it down from there because you have a goal. But for the larger ones, so we would always set, if it's possible, set a 5-year plan first. Break it down into the 3-year plan. And it can also be slightly different from the 5-year, but like the 3-year plan should lead up to the 5-year plan. And then break it down into the 1-year plan. And within 1 year, you should, in order to reach the 3-year plan, so all the plans are leading to the next plan. So the 1-year plan is your milestone towards the 3-year plan, things that has to happen. And then from the 1 year, I really like breaking it down to daily or even monthly. So you have that extra milestones, because
weekly, I suppose.
Yeah, like during this day I have to do X amount of things, and during this week I need to be doing this, so I can allocate my time, because obviously I have a kid as well, so I have to split my time between like working and being a mom. So for me, I have a scheduler that a friend of mine made for Mental Health UK, like an organization. I can't remember what organization with mental health has to do about allocating the time where you can be your best, and where you can put it. And I really like that planner that they made, which breaks it into like days. So if you're struggling with having enough spoons to do projects, because obviously with Kickstarters, a lot of the designers that I work with can get really stressed and they will panic. And then my job is to be there to, cool them down. Okay, let's talk about it, having the plan and being able to not panic as much. So I need to be cool. And for me, it's so important to just have that, all these roadmaps and my own monthly planner where I can just go, okay, this is what has to happen.
I guess all of this can apply to anything. I mean, we are talking about board game marketing specifically, but all of this could apply to answer Jeroen. It could be about your job, your house, your future jobs. It could be about you as a person, like where do you want to be? Because as individuals, board games aren't everything. Clearly I've made it a big part of my life. And I've decided that I want to work in the board game industry. I want to be here. It's how I'm trying to make a livable income, something that I can. But yeah, it's not the sum total of everyone's life. And it's not even the sum total of my life. I have to think about other things. Like, it's also worth thinking about, okay, what kind of exercise regimen, like there's other things in my life. I would like to be in a state where I'm still healthy enough to go cycling and dancing when I'm able to. And yeah, board games aren't everything. There goes my entire belief system. So says someone who said, like, plan for a year. Family expansion comes to mind since there's a 9-month waiting period. And Jess mentioned that Jess specifically does not think beyond 2 years. And I can understand that if you're just entering something, if you don't want to give it too much gravitas, because if you think too long-term about something, you might be putting too much pressure on that, because you might be thinking, hey, you know what, board games are a thing that I'm going to try out. And if they work out, then I'll plan a little bit longer. If they don't, then I won't. But if you have decided that these are going to be your main thing, like, it kind of is for me, then it's worth thinking, okay, even within that, how am I going to spend my future time? Am I going to spend my time, like recently I've been doing some sort of media, it turns out. And am I going to be spending time doing freelance designing? Am I going to be spending time doing consultation or some sort of paid media stuff? Am I going to spend, like, how much of my time is going to be spent in 5 years' time running stuff by Bez and coming up with designs? Is that going to be a money earner? Is that going to be a not-for-profit thing where all the money from the LDEC basically goes back into, helping people to read? And by the way, thank you very much, River Dusty, for the earlier comment. But what is the benefit in looking so far ahead? Is it just to have some aspirational thing? Is it just to have something that can keep us focused? What's the benefit?
All right, so I suppose I can run with an example. Last year, a little bit more than a year ago, when I was doing my first Kickstarter, I thought this is really cool, and I'm really loving what I'm doing, and I want to do it more. So I focused. I said I will give it 1 year, and I made a 1-year plan. So within 1 year, if it's not working, I will do something else. But I'm going to give it 1 year, and for that 1 year, my plan was like I'm going to spend 6 months just doing consultations and doing free work, and I'm going to start conversations where I can help everyone that I find along my way, just networking and getting to know people, and just dive as deep into the scene as I can and see, is there a spot for me? Is this something I can actually do? Is the people nice? Because you never know. And obviously in the beginning I found a lot of really nice people, and I'm like, is everyone going to be like this? Then I'm staying. And then along this, I went into Twitch and I discovered you and your content. from like a random Twitter somewhere. I can't even remember. And I ended up here, and you know, I really loved the content you were making, and I was just like consuming it just for my own enjoyment. And then you invited me on, and I was like, okay, does this fit into my 1 year plan? Not necessarily, but I really enjoyed it, and I saw that I was providing value, which was my goal for my 1 year plan. So in that sense, it did fit in it. And then I just kept going, and someone was asking like, hey, do you want to like help me do this more than just, you know, using your free time? And then the whole thing with my other main full-time job happened in November. So that gave me a lot of extra time to work on things. So I was really, the timing was pretty much perfect. Like I went straight from working full-time with the publisher and then straight into working with board games for a next Kickstarter, which was really cool. And once I've started that ball, and it was looking at, okay, so now I'm going to reassess my 1 year plan. Where am I? And is this something I can continue? And then going, okay, I'm going to maybe give it another year, and then making a plan for how I'm going to spend the next year.
And sorry, I was also answering a wee thing. I think that because we had a side question about things, but River Dusty talks about marketing plans being hard. A decade ago, you could run a marketing campaign for 2 years. Nowadays, people are bored of your campaign within a month. I'm not sure I would necessarily agree with this, because it depends what you mean by a marketing campaign. Like, look at the LDEC Twitter, and I'm actually going to do a quick cheeky link to it for those who...
let's go
because there. The LDEC Twitter, Chris is popping on a bunch of stuff, and every day, well, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, there's a bunch of games. Currently, Monday is a game that Alex invented, which is a wee puzzle. It says, hey, and I should actually just try and show these photos, since, you know, they are mine to show as I wish or not show. The point is that 3 times a week, there's a wee game. And you think, okay, that's something to engage people in, to bring people in. Okay, what's words that can fit exactly 20 points? And then the points are worth whatever the letters are. You can only use the letters that you see. And then on Wibble, it's just Wibble. You've got to use a letter from every card. If this is too much for you, just try with the top card. For example, you've got Goons, Goons. Or you could say Soonish. You can use additional letters. But if you want to think of something for the top and bottom, then yeah, you might think of... I can't think of something super quickly off the top of my head, but that's the thing. Like, it's designed so that it maybe gets you thinking about it for, you know, 20 seconds, and then you're like, oh yes, that's a thing that I managed to find out, and you are able to use additional words. And then finally, you've got phrasal on a Friday, which oh wait, that's not the one. There we go, phrasal on the Friday. And yep, there's a wee bit of variation. This is not exactly a marketing campaign, but let's be honest, it kind of is. Because this is me trying to get people to play it, to enjoy it, to bring it into people's mind, to say, hey, you know what? Phrasal's a good game. I fancy playing Phrasal. And, oh, you know what? That's Total, that Alex invented. That's a pretty good game. I bet there are other good games for the LDEC. And yes, we've rotated a couple of these games out. We used to have, I think there's been 2 games that we took out and brought back in, or maybe just 1. Yeah, I can't remember. Oh, there used to be Categorical and there used to be Fable. That's the thing. And now Fable and Categorical have been replaced by Phrasal and Total. And people, because it's interesting, because it's slightly fresh, that could keep going, and it's actually been growing in how many people engage with it. And I believe that if we keep working at it, then when it comes to the next Kickstarter, rather than getting 200 people backing it, you know, we might get that many, you know, right at the start? Probably not. But you know what? We might move towards that position where we are able to get a whole bunch of people engaging straight away. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, so, but then I do need a strategy. River says, yep, I never did marketing for board games, so it may not apply to this. I wish to be educated, of course. But even for Coca-Cola, I mean, for one of the biggest brands, like, they're still advertising. It's just, hey, you know what? You've probably heard of this drink, right? But hey, we just want to remind you of it. We want to make sure that it's in your brain. And that's a different kind of marketing. And all of this, and thank you very much for the love, Jeroen and yeah, Dina. And yeah, I agree with everything you said, of course, but I'm incredibly biased. But
yeah, because yeah, and planning, just to start planning can be really difficult if you don't know where do we start. And I think if there's a team, you know, look at what everyone is doing. Cool, isn't it? So, oh, you guys are so funny. Yeah. Look at what everyone is doing, and then play to your strength. So define at the beginning of the planning session, at least if you're using like an OKR system where you're going on quarterly planning, for example, for a business, play towards everyone's strength. Try to define what everyone who is a part of the teams and what their strengths are, and then see if you can divide the task that is being done so that you're playing towards everyone's strengths. So say there is a task that needs to be done, that isn't necessarily the person who has the task best job. Maybe they are not getting an enjoyment out of it. Maybe it's just a dredge. And then by swapping a task to someone else, you can have, you know, reinvigorating it and have still be on track to get things done. And then once you know and defined what people's strengths are, look at what you want to do, and look at not just what the company wants to do, but also what the people within the company can do for, like, so that what the people can do for the company,
so
based
being
on their strength.
about your actual,
yeah. What do you want to do?
Are.
What do you want to spend your time doing? And also, like, what can the company then give back to you? And then have a goal for that. So maybe one person needs support in terms of flexibility for having a kid. Okay, so that's something the company can give you, and you can give back to the company for some of your strength, and then make a plan for that. So the company goal level would be, you know, remain flexible with our team members to allow for, you know, personal goals and you know, whatever, or for mental health for that matter. You know, that in itself is a big goal, I think, and a very important one to allow people to have bad days and good days. It's a stretching time.
It is our quick stretching time.
Oh, it's back and
Elements reminds us back and forth. But yeah, this notion of, I wanted to lead into the two questions that we had written out in the description and nail into them. And River Dusty says, stretching time or sudden earthquake. Firstly, what are some sensible long-term plans if we're trying to build a business or a series of games? What should we actually be thinking about? What is it useful to plan about? What is it fine to just ignore? And what is it realistic to think about? So how do we know that our long-term plans are sensible? Is it important to have SMART goals, if you know what I mean?
I think SMART goals definitely has its place. But I also think, so if you're making, say, 5 goals, let's just make an example. If you're making 5 goals, have one of them being like wildly aspirational. Like, it would be super cool if I did this one thing, which I'm probably not going to be able to do, but I want to try. Have like one wildly aspirational goal, and have the other ones be more like SMART and like things that you know you can do. By putting goals that you know you can achieve, it's easier to feel like you're setting yourself up for success. And if you have only goals that are like wildly aspirational, you'll get demotivated, you'll start stressing out about it, and you'll derail the train tracks.
So do you think you need really a mix of easy things and kind of medium difficulty and maybe
Yeah.
one super aspirational?
Yeah, I always chuck in like one super aspirational, because I think that's, for me at least, that motivates me. And I think having aspirational goals is important to have them written down and defined. Because then you're like, okay, if all of these things that I want to happen and I can make happen, if everything aligns, this is what I want to do. This would be so cool if I could do. Then you've written it down. You said that that's what you want to do. And like in
Like, how
your
crazy are we talking? Like, if I'm thinking, okay, as a super aspirational goal for the LDEC, I want to have a school. Like, I want to have a school where people are just, learning through the Montessori method, like inspired by that, playing games and kind of, it's, trying to have some sort of program for helping push games into more schools and have, I don't know, something, but I guess you need to make it something that it's not just I want to go to the moon. That's silly.
Yeah,
It has
obviously.
to be.
So for you,
Has to,
like that would be, trying to find a program where you can bring your game into the educational system is an aspirational goal, definitely. Not many people do it. But I also think it's something that fits the game, and it is something that could be achieved because it fits with what the game is trying to do. I definitely see that as a possible venture. And it's not so outlandish either, in the sense that other people have done similar things, brought games into school,
oh
and
no,
there
but
are
if I mean like an actual school, that's the LDEC school.
the L school. There are like role-playing schools in Denmark, so I mean, it's
Ooh,
not where they learn about game design and play role-playing games like the whole summer, like a summer school thing. And it's not like
amazing.
camp, but it's like a school. It's actual school building. And to me, like, that just sounds absolutely wild. And I think it's so cool that that is a thing. So why not? I mean, that would be like at least a 10-year plan, though.
And apparently Jay Foolsguard knows about this. And so, yeah, we've got some points about,
Question.
sometimes you need to adapt your marketing because some things happen. Like 18 months ago, if your long-term marketing plan was to have someone playing your game at a restaurant at the start of 2021, that might have seemed reasonable. But how do you adapt? And
Yeah.
I mean, is there
Well,
something specific about your long-term plans that can make it more or less adaptable, or is it all to do with our mindsets, really?
so I think what you have to look at here in this particular case with the wanting them to play in the guest restaurant is, what is the primary goal of this action? Because that's what it is. It's not a goal in itself that the people are playing the games in the restaurant. It is that more people are playing games, and it might be more people are playing particular games, and that has to do about an awareness campaign. It has to be about distribution, for example, and community. So you can always move your community. You can always move the how you're planning your distribution. You could always, instead of having actual people in a physical presentation, you can move most of these things to virtual. As a good example, during Q3 alone in 2020, we saw a 35% increase in content marketing brought online because people were adapting their marketing plans.
Yeah, when I talked to James Hammy Hamilton, so Hammy was talking about on Tuesday about having to pivot. It's like the entire exhibitions industry is having to pivot to do online stuff. Like even in your personal life, if you start a board game group and then maybe it can't happen right now, maybe you keep it going online, but maybe you decide, hey, we don't enjoy doing it online. Maybe that's a lower priority. Yeah, Alex, that's yeah. Sadly true. Yeah. Yoda says, why do content marketers love going to the mountains? They love the high concentration of evergreens. And Alex says, remember, a content marketer is happy than an unhappy marketer.
Well, of course, yeah. Absolutely.
You peeps. You peeps. Okay. So, what are some actionable things that we can do to actually set those good goals?
All right, yeah. I think defining what the plaids mean. So, if you're talking about like, I want to set up games in a restaurant, define what sort of marketing is it. Is it an awareness marketing? Is it content marketing? Are you wanting something in return? Define what type of marketing all of these aspects actually are, and look at them and say, okay, what are other things that we can also attach into the same goal? In that sense, you would be you're giving yourself possible pathways that you can pick up. So if you're having extra time, you haven't just defined one thing that is attached to this one goal. I want people to play games at a restaurant, but you are saying, okay, I want more people to play this particular game. I can do it in a restaurant, or like I would like it to be in physical places where I can film it. But then you're also having the option to diversify your plan a little bit, but also giving it more things and more actions into it. So you're not setting everything in stone, and you're allowing your marketing plan to be adaptable and to be able to change it.
So what you're suggesting is that for each goal, we need to ask, what is this goal pushing us towards? What is the reason behind it? And for those who don't know SMART goals, that's like, firstly, it has to be specific. It has to be measurable. M for measurable. A for achievable. It has to be, and A and R are quite similar in a lot of the acronyms, like achievable and realistic. Is this something that the world is ready for? Can you personally do it? And T, timely. Let's try and set some goals that it's like, okay, I'm going to do this by such and such a date. And that doesn't mean that you beat yourself up if you don't get it to that time. But you need to think about, firstly, what am I aiming for? As you said it right at the start, what am I aiming for in 5 years' time? What is my ideal situation or even if it's 2 years' time? And then how can I move towards that? What's blocking me from right now? What are my goals that I want to get to? And then what are some smart things that I can do, but also what's the reason for those? Have maybe in another column in a little, either if you're thinking about it or if you've put it on a spreadsheet, one column, this is why I'm doing this. For example, if I said I'm writing about this book, bits of this book, 5 days a week when I come back to writing my book, maybe the reason for that is, do I want to be seen as an expert? Do I want to have the satisfaction of sharing knowledge? Do I want to have the kudos that comes from writing a book, even if it's a bit rubbish? These are all sorts of reasons to.
Yeah.
Do I want
Or maybe it's just you challenging yourself. Can you write a book?
And kind of thinking about those reasons, and then if there's a reason that I can't write a book, for example, maybe something happens to my hand.
Or your computer,
if there's a situation like that, maybe I'm like, okay, I can still check these things, or I can still tick off that, yes, I was doing it for this period of time. But the other thing is, how can we make sure that we're moving towards them? Is that just all about making sure that these goals are smart in that, or do you have any other tips for making sure that we are getting towards them?
I had something. I was like, oh, I should say this thing. What was it?
Let's have a brief intermission with some jokes from the audience. Firstly, why
there's a lot of jokes here.
Digital marketers like trampolines? Because they have a bounce rate. Why
Yeah, we
are
don't like high
farmers
passwords.
marketers the best? They're outstanding in their field. Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what I like to do when it comes to my planning is to have what is it? They call it key results. So you're taking each of the plans and breaking it down into key results. So maybe it is things that are measurable, and like you're saying, I call them key results. And then once you have your key results, you can start ticking off and go like, okay, this is how we're moving towards these things. But also look at your key results and add in, like, I like to make a spreadsheet for this. Add in your blockers. What is blocking the audience to react right now on the content that you're pushing in a way that you're wanting, and identify your blockers. So
But if
say,
you're thinking about the blockers for your audience, isn't that a lot of guesswork and hypotheses?
well, yes and no. So in an awareness campaign, you're wanting people to know about your brand. What is blocking them from knowing about your brand? Okay, maybe it is because you're not on the bigger social medias. Maybe you're not posting often enough. Maybe your hashtags are off. And these things you can measure. You can actually check the feedback and the data. You can look at your data and go like, okay, is this actually happening? Maybe you have a goal to start gathering user-generated content and have people create content for you. Okay, do you have a clear hashtag? What is needed for people to do it? Try to think about someone who is taking in all these things from you. What is preventing them from doing it? What is preventing someone to answer on the questions on the LDEC Twitter, for example? And we know that it might be time. All right, we can't do anything about that, but it is a factor. It might be that they are too difficult. Okay, that is something we can do something about. Maybe it's the time of your posting. It's not directed towards your audience. Maybe they are asleep. Maybe it's lunchtime or work hours. And maybe we can do something there, because that is data we can look at. And we can also look at the data and see, like, what is our response rate based on what is the reach that it's getting versus how many comments are we getting. Is it within the 1.6% that is the expected from the reach that we're getting? And if we are hitting that 1.6, then we should feel pretty good about it. If it is higher than 1.6, then you should definitely feel good about it. And look about so those are like, identify your blockers. And once you know what the blocker is, if it was the time, well, okay, we can't do so much about that. Maybe we could try different timing of when we're doing the different content, and we can experiment with it and see if we're getting a better response rate. But in the end, we can't give people more time beyond, maybe we needed to make it easier to solve it, and that would be, costing less time.
I mean, it's difficult because, in a sense, you can post things at different times and see what works, what doesn't. We can, try different hashtags, but unless we have a certain critical mass, let's say, until we reach that critical mass, there's too many, it feels like there's too many variables. If we're only reaching 5 people, and 5 people are actually taking the action that we want, whether that's replying or whatever, okay, we change it and then 10 people reply. Is that because of the timing? Is that just because one person happens to see it at that particular time? And that's ignoring the point that when you're starting off, you might be even struggling to get one reply.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you say, okay, one person saw it? Well, that doesn't really tell you anything. So, yeah, this is kind of getting onto another topic, I guess, which is overcoming that initial, when you're struggling in the early days to get any meaningful data. How do you actually get that data?
Mm-hmm.
And
Impact. Yeah.
I almost feel like, because I did say right at the start, I am going to try and keep this to about an hour, and
Yes.
we've already got to the top of that. That feels like a reasonable topic if you're willing for in 2 weeks' time, measuring impact. And maybe we can
Yeah.
talk about, but are there any things that you can tell us right off the bat, and then we'll delve into it properly in a couple of
Okay.
weeks. How can we measure
Yeah.
impact specifically if you're just starting off?
I actually have an algorithm. Let's see if I can like super quickly find it. I think I left it somewhere handily, hopefully. Let's see.
So I do want to
No, okay, I don't have it on my tabs that I have open. But basically, look at the amount of followers you have. Break it down and look at your reach. Your reach is obviously going to be higher than the amount of followers, usually. Because people are going to see it, and then because they interacted with it, maybe they just liked it, it's going to increase your reach. So don't really worry about the reach straight away. But look at how many followers are. Out of those, is 1% of them engaging with the content? If you're hitting a 1%er after 3 months of gathering data and doing the same thing consistently, and then you can review the data. So you need to have enough data before you can start analyzing it to really see your impact. If you're reviewing it from a week-to-week basis and continuing doing changes, you're not going to end up getting the consistency that is required before your audience starts to expect what content is coming out and replying to it. So you need to be consistent for a couple of weeks to get the ball rolling. And it's with all type of content creation. It's like you just have to keep doing what you're doing as long as you believe in it. And once you've hit that 1 month, you can start looking at the data. Once you hit more than 100 follows, the platforms are going to give you more data to look at. Just go with what people are liking. So if after a month you see that no one has replied to this particular type of content at this particular time, then maybe change the timing of it, or change a little bit of the wording, or you can do like A/B testing, but never A/B test week to week when it comes to social media content.
So the first lesson that is our little preview is that you need to have a good amount of time spent on each thing before you decide, okay, that's not working. It's not just, oh, that one time that I posted at 5 p.m. rather than 5:30, I got half the engagement.
Yeah.
And it's maybe try it a couple more times, see how it goes, and work out if it's a trend. J Fool's Guard, apparently we mentioned the system for planning earlier. GKS, I assume you're not meaning smart, but did you mention GKS?
No, OKR.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually went on, like, what is the second or the third stream we did together? I was talking about a book that I really like for OKR and measuring for social media marketing. I don't have the book in like the visible shelf, but I can always share it after the fact and put it on Twitter, which is a great book when it comes to like particularly for marketing aspects and on how to approach OKRs. That I really like using, and I see a lot of good results using that system.
But you can't remember the name of the book.
I can't remember because I already, I had it like, oh, I've talked about the book before, and it's not visible because last time it was visible on my shelf, so I could just go like, okay, that's the one. But yeah.
And before we get into the recap wrap up, we might have a quick auditing tip. So what's a quick check that we can make? You are going to mention something about our branding.
Yeah. Okay. So we've already mentioned that you should stay consistent, and it has to do a lot. And ensuring consistency should also happen across platforms. No, staying consistent isn't necessarily just making the same kind of content in the set schedule, but also adapting it, but staying consistent so that the way you're doing things, the colors they're using, the word choices they're using is consistent across the different platforms where you're visible. So as easy as making sure that your @handle is the same for all the platforms where you're present can do a big thing for your presence and as a part of your awareness campaign, because the same name is going to build upon the association that people are getting to your brand. So, for example, Stuff by Buzz is Stuff by Buzz everywhere. We know where we can find Buzz. It makes it
Except for
super easy.
Facebook, where back in the
Yeah,
day you used to not be able to put F and B next to each other. And then
yeah,
I found out that things by Bez worked. Because I tried stuff by and something else, and that didn't work either. So I was like, okay. But apparently it
yeah.
can work now. Apparently they've changed that, and I need to move
They
over.
did. Yeah, it's but luckily, there's a merging page function, so at least for pages, it's easier. But yeah, so there's a consistency, and
Maybe that
that
should be a
builds
goal for
on
today.
maybe, yeah. Look into
To work out
finding.
how to merge pages, yeah.
There's literally a button that just says merge, and then it's
And
a
thing.
text field where you put in the name of the other one. Yeah.
Okay, so make sure that you're consistent. Are you being consistent? Are you being consistent in your name? Are you being consistent in your messaging? Are you being consistent in the sort of imagery that you use? Because if one place you're dark and gritty and one place you're light and fluffy, as an extreme example, that's not good.
Yeah.
And
also the tags are you using. For if you have many games and you're using a tag for your publisher, also all the games should have their own hashtag because that's what the audience is expecting. And if you're not using it, you're basically failing the user generated expectations for your brand because it's not present. I've seen several Kickstarters not like failing to fund fully because one of their greatest hashtags that was directly to their game was for someone who was a fan, and that was the biggest mention, who had the highest amount of reach, was someone other than the publisher from the game. And that is so sad and absolutely terrible for them, because then they weren't able to launch because none of the content that they were pushing contained the tags for either their company. It didn't contain the tags for their game, and there was no way of finding them because also there was no consistency of the tags. So don't do that. If
so
you're
if
using
you're
a
pushing
hashtag,
your own, but most publishers don't do hashtag name of company, or do they? Like
they
on
do.
Twitter.
Yeah. So every now and then you can see that there is at least most of them will have hashtag the company occasionally. So when they're doing press releases and press notifications, at least I've seen some of the larger ones have done this previously. So when you're scrolling through the tags, at least on Instagram and occasionally also on Twitter, you can find them on there. So that you're building on your search engine optimization. The tag is associated with where it comes from, so the company. And you should always ensure that your tag that is particularly for your brand is associated more with you than with your audience. So Stuff by Bess should eventually lead me to the actual Stuff by Bess account, and not just people who really love Stuff by Bess. Unless it's the Stuff by Bess fam kind of tag, then obviously that should be associated with the audience.
I mean, so maybe let's examine that more in depth on another day. But hopefully that's been helpful to people. I'll do a quick recap, wrap up, then we'll look at everybody's jokes. We'll move over to you, and then we will finish up on what I hope is a lovely Thursday for everyone. Yeah. So, recap, wrap up. We have talked about making board game friends. We've talked about me changing the formats of the show and shortening these episodes, and in a couple of weeks I will be adding for afternoon play along, play test, whatever streams on Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and then I'll be taking off Saturday when the world opens up a wee bit. We talked about milestones. We talked about how can we test things. We talked about moving in a good direction. That's ultimately what it's all about. Where do you want to be? If you actually work out where you want to be, and then you work out how can I get there, then you're able to work out what steps are able to get you there. Think about what's blocking your audience from knowing you. You do have to put yourself into the shoes of other people, whether you're designing a game, whether you're marketing, whether you're writing or performing or improvising on a keyboard or whatever, you have to think about the recipients of this, like the intended audience, and be mindful of your own limitations. What can you do? What's realistic? We talked about having maybe one or two goals that are very easy to do. That's it's like, okay, going to be the easy wins, but something that figuratively gets you out of bed so you actually do that stuff. Some stuff that takes a little bit more work that you need to strive for, and maybe having one in there that's super ambitious that you really want, that you're passionate about. Honestly, I don't care that much about having Eldek emblazoned on the front of a building. That was a bit of a joke. But I do actually care about having it being a big part of school curriculums, but that's more of that would be a totally different approach. And being a bit mindful of, hey, what do I actually care about? Not just, hey, wouldn't it be cool to have the LDEC written on the side of a rocket? I mean, yeah, it would, but that's like not even something I'm that fussed about. It's like, yeah, you know, it would be cool, but am I willing to do all the work? Probably not. We talked about the nature of measuring these things, making sure that you do it multiple times before you measure it. We talked about what's the SMART goal. We talked about OKR, and hopefully if you check out hopefully in a couple of weeks we'll be able to recommend some books. And we had a quick chat about making sure that you're consistent and thinking about how to get started. Those might be things that we talk about next time. So let's move on to some jokes. Crabs are good at marketing. They can shell you anything, says River Dusty. Yoda. Knock, knock. Who's there? Remarketing. Remarketing who? Knock, knock. Who's there? Remarketing. Yeah. How did I get my first lead? Asks Yoda. I used the Salesforce. Use the force.
And you know, with the week of 4th of May coming up, may the force be with you. We're gonna see a lot of remarketing and the bad jokes coming up. Star Wars ones.
River Dusty says a priest hires a marketing consultant to improve his conversion rate. Yep, conversion rate. Marketers get rid of houseflies with a SWOT analysis. Why do cab drivers make good content marketers? Asks Netherlander Yoda, also known as Dutch Yoda, by the way, for anyone. They can really drive in traffic. Why are priests terrible marketers? When they appear, the engagement ends. Yeah, gets it, because they marry off people, so it's the end of their engagements. Oh my gosh, you peeps. Fine, Alex, give everyone like 50 points or something. But
50 points.
If you have enjoyed this, then of course feel free to check me out. As Dina mentioned, I am basically Stuff by Bits everywhere, at least on Instagram, Twitch, YouTube, my main website, stuffbybez.com. Please check out the redirect to my Discord, which is stuffbybez.com/Discord. If you're interested in chatting about design, sharing music videos that you enjoyed, sharing pictures of food, it's a nice place to share things that are making you smile. And I want to say thank you to everyone, everyone who's been chatting along, who's been asking questions, and thank you to Alex and Nicholas and Druna and Rob and like just all the people, and River Dusty and Yoda. And most of all, obviously, if I've not mentioned you, I do apologize, but thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for being here. And thank you very much, Dina. I do appreciate you.
Thank you.
And
thank you for having me.
Oh, gosh. River Dusty says, my three favourite things are eating my family and not using commas. Yep. Very nice. So, yes, with that, Dina.
What are you up to? No.
Oh, I was going to ask, where do you like to be found very quickly?
What?
Where do you like to be found, Dina?
Found. There. Okay, so I am on TikTok, where I occasionally, completely randomly, no consistency, puts out TikToks, some of which will end up on Instagram as well, though there are more original content going into Instagram there is on TikTok, because still trying out some things for clients and stuff, like, hey, would this thing work? And then I put it out on my own, and then if it can be replicated, I will put it onto theirs. So it's completely random on my TikTok. If you want to like look at what I'm up to, then subscribe to that one. On Twitter, I try to share whenever I do streams and fun things and interesting things that has to do about aiding the community, and some work-related things. And on LinkedIn, it's just work. I will announce upcoming Kickstarters and stuff on that one.
And you can search for Dina Said So, or you can search for Dina Ramsey, spelt as DinaRamse, all around. And as you started singing, exactly like that, it is now. Everyone watching it is over to you. What are you up to? You can share, but only if you want to. So if you've been watching, what are you up to? What are you looking forward to? If you have anything that you would like to share, whether it's something on your chest that you want to get off, whether it's something that you want to, you've been excited about and you want to share the love, whether it's something that you want to feel committed to doing or whatever, or you just want to tell us right now. And yeah, so River Dusty has shared that River Dusty first believed that my name was Stuffy Bez, and I have had more than one person say this. I might want to start capitalizing that second B. What do you think?
Yeah, it can be useful. Yeah.
In the comments, do you think I should capitalize my second B? So
it's a poll for Twitter. That's a great poll for Twitter. Yeah.
Or stuff by Bez. So what do you think? Which of these, stuff by Bez or stuff by Bez? Basically, they're written exactly the same if you're listening with a capital B for by, or with a small case, lowercase b for by. And Alex, you can't have spaces. Stop trolling.
No.
Stop trolling.
I'm actually quite a big fan of first letter word capitalizing when it comes to marketing. That is, that's a lot
River
of...
Dusty basically wants me to alternate between capitals and lowercase.
Yeah, it looks fancy, that's for sure.
Or I could capitalize the F and the Y and the Z. That is definitely a thing that I could theoretically do, yes. Yes. It's a thing I could do.
It makes it really hard for dyslexic people to read it with like random capitalization into. But first word capitalization is technically making it easier for people to read longer sentences and break them apart quicker.
And setting aside all the joke answers, just yell your name at everybody. Block capital. So we've got one actual vote for capitalizing the, because it's interesting, because I felt I was doing it as if it was on a book, because it's just a 2-letter word, and yeah. But thank you, everyone.
Right? Printed media is different from digital media, so you would have to do things slightly different, but still staying on brand.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And yeah, it could absolutely be stuff by Bez, or stuff by Bez. Yeah. And we've got the second vote for capitalizing the second B. I am actually going to put it to a Twitter vote. to see what people
I
think.
think you should, run it for 5 days.
Why 5? Why
Yeah.
not 7?
Because the last 2 just season. Because so it has to do about longevity of content on Twitter and for how long it's going to stay and act as current content. And getting engagement on a poll after 5 days is basically zil, none, very little engagement on the last couple of days because it's so close to finalizing. People are just wanting to know what the score is and then make up their own mind and move along. So 5 days tends to see the best conversion of people answering polls.
That's interesting because I kind of have in the past, if I care about the results, I've just felt like, okay, 7 days, even if I don't get that many people on the days after the second day, then, they're going to continue to trickle in maybe. And if I care about it, I should give people the maximum opportunity to answer, but maybe that's wrong. Maybe that lowers the chance of people voting in the first place. I don't know. But yeah, when people see the vote straight away as soon as they vote, so it's not like it's hidden until the end.
Yeah, and people are mostly going to see the poll within the first 3 days, so you're allowing the last 2 days for trickle-in poll answerings.
And we've got a lot more joke answers, so it could be Zebby Butts or Bez buy stuff. No, Bez buy Bez or
Bez buy Bez.
Buy Bez stuff or Bzz or or SBB or SBB. Anyway, for me, Dina, what are you up to after this stream?
Okay, so, well, technically I'm going to cut my kid first, but yesterday I did the first stream test on my own Twitch, and I kind of thought it was a lot of fun. We did some game iterations on a game that I've been working on as a good designer, and we're thinking that we're going to start doing this like once a week. So I'm hoping to, make some plans for that and have lining up some content that I'm going to do today. And I have like 2 Kickstarters coming up really soon, so there's some outreach that needs to be done and some influencers to be convinced. So that's going to be the rest of my day.
I think there's no board game things before. Matthew Dunstan does a thing, as you know, on the Wednesdays at 9 until 10 a.m. UK time. But if you're wanting a time when no one else is streaming, literally, no one else is streaming before 10 a.m. on any day other than Wednesday, to my knowledge, generally.
And then I started at 10 on Wednesday. That's not good at me then.
But that's 10
UK,
time.
Obviously. Oh, yeah, 10 UK. Yeah, so I started at 8 UK. Yeah.
That's pretty early, though. Like, if it was an hour later, then you could maybe pick up a few more people. But anyway, so we might see some more streams. And thank you very much, Erasin6, for following. I do appreciate that. And yes, it'll be a weekly thing. For my next streams, obviously look at stuffbybez.com/streams, where you have a vague idea of what's coming up for the next few months. It gets more and more vague as you go further into the future. But I can definitely tell you that tomorrow will be a Friendly Friday forum. Hopefully the weather will be nice enough to do it in my garden. I've decided I'm going to do every Friendly Friday forum in a new location if I can. So one week will be in my garden. Next week might be, maybe we'll have a little poll at the end of the episode. Where should next week's Friendly Friday forum be? Should it be Houses of Parliament or should it be
on the rooftop?
No, I can't go onto the rooftop.
No? Any rooftop? Like any rooftop will do. I'm not saying like your rooftop.
No, sorry.
The nice and flat ones. They're like parking lot roofs.
That's just a bit. That's asking too much of me, Dina. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
But like, I can propose. I can propose two possibilities. I could go to Downhills Park. I could go to I could go like maybe in the middle of a football pitch, which isn't really being played at 10 a.m. UK time, where it would be very quiet. Or I could go to maybe St James's Park, or I could go to Parliament Square. Those seem like
That
three good
sounds
options.
nice. Yeah, those are great options.
And then we'll go through all the landmarks. Anyway, Friendly Friday Forum tomorrow. I'll do a bunch of unboxing. We are going to be discussing. I'm going to try and have points of discussion each week. And we are going to be chatting about the 5 Geek Social Fallacies, which is an article. And let me actually link to that. If you're watching on Twitch, you will see this link. So check that out. And you don't have to have read it, but I will be using it as a nominal point of conversation. But I will be very ready to adapt if other people have other things to say, as always. And then maybe in future weeks, we'll have a nominal point of conversation. But as always, it's just join in or don't. Saturday, I will be discussing self-publishing, pondering with Jessica Mederingham, Nikita Sullivan, Janice Turner, and Andy Hopwood. Sunday will be my final Bez review something. If you want to get me to review something, then go to stuffbybez@gmail.com. Email me on that address, and I will review your idea or whatever it is, as long as it's short enough. If you are sending me rules, make sure that the rules are 2 pages or less. Monday, I am discussing ownership of narrative in game books with Peter, Harley, and Scott. That's going to be a good chat. Pitching and production on Tuesday. Actually, it's just pitching. Let me actually change that. We're going to spend like 10 minutes maximum on production. Nano Muckle and Micro Muckle in the evenings. Meeting Jenham, an amazing musician. I'm excited to talk about the interplay between composition and board games on Wednesday. Next Thursday, I will be discussing translation with Maisie, who's just a joy to have on. As have you been, Dina? I don't want to take that away. But please feel free to share, spread the word. And I'm going to delete this little thing. If you're here on Twitch, of course, I am about to check who else is on. I imagine Idle Michael might be starting in a few minutes, but is anyone else actually on already? Erin Shea live. We could read Erin Shea, or we could read Dan, or who we gonna read? I am going to I'm thinking Dan live. Read. Oh, I didn't realize that you were Dan live. Dan live. So we are going to read another musician in a few minutes. And for now, there is only one thing left to say. Oh yeah, if you are joining us, then please share the raid call. Rule 1, put the boards in the middle of the table.
Yes, best reviews rules. Rule 1, put the board in the middle of the table. I mean, that one has been the talking point of the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, sure. If you want to email me that to... Yeah, I agree with Rob Dabio from that. Yeah.
I gotta love it though.
Anyway.
It'll be another 2 weeks before we stop saying that, and then we'll find something else. Put
the table under the board. This is the end of the show.
Yeah.
Do you have anything left to say, Dina, that is burning?
If anyone wants me to play a game of theirs on TTS for my streams or during the MeepupCon, contact me and I'll make it happen. We can play your game, whatever it is. So, because I'm gonna need games to play and I want people to play with. So, come on.
So that is the end, and for now, it is. Bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, bye. Bye bye. Thank you for watching
Thank you for watching
along.
along.
Bye bye. Bye bye. This is the end of the show. Bye bye. Bye bye. And now it's time to go. Bye bye. Bye bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye bye. Bye bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye bye. Bye bye. This is the end of the show. Bye bye. Bye bye. And now it's time to go. And yeah, bye bye everyone. Bye bye
Thank you
Yoda.
for marketing along.
Bye bye J Foolsguard.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for liking and subscribing along. Bye bye River Dusty. Bye bye Alex. Bye bye everyone. Lots of love. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Say ASMR.
Bye. 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 Bye.